Hi everyone, welcome to episode 24 of The Green Room. I am here with my colleague Nick and Harry.
Hello.
They're still off camera eventually, she'll come on camera. We have had a little summer recess, but we're now back and raring to go. Continue where we left off. How is everyone?
Well, James, the real question is, how are you?
Yes.
I'm very well.
The team has expanded.
Not in this room, but yes. Yeah. Yes, so had a little baby. So that's...
You must be very tired.
No, I'm alright, actually. She's doing alright. She's good. She's good. She is sleeping through the night. So life is A-OK. But it's all very exciting.
Good choice of shirts there.
Thank you. Well, it's quite nice and bright, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to have to do some
Stop falling asleep.
Things with a colour tonality afterwards, so people don't get blinded on the other side.
Have you gone for a bit of colour on your shirt?
Yeah, I have.
You dropped a bit of food.
On purpose.
Food down your front.
Yeah. It's a nice sort of jalfrezi type.
Jalfrezi yellow.
Colour, yeah.
I think it's more bolty, but...
But anyway, have you had a good last sort of 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's been alright. Bit of summer towards the end.
Enjoy your holidays.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was working, but
always working. Nick, you never holiday. Harry, you never holiday.
Anyway, what's the topic for today?
So what we're going to do today is we're going to do. It's going to be slightly haphazard, but it's basically we're heading towards cooler weather, although it's relatively warm outside today. But we're heading towards the cooler weather, typically, sort of beginning of September, heading into October. So we're going to do a few tips to sort of prepare for the winter, things you can do, save a bit of money. And this all stems, actually, from me at the last weekend, getting someone, I got an email about my boiler needed to be serviced. Okay. And so I thought, right, I need to get this done. And I have done it, but they found all sorts of issues. Really? So from that, I thought...
It's quite new though, isn't it?
It is a new boiler, yeah. They have found a couple of issues. So they're just trying to fix it all at the moment. So that's cheap. However, first tip, you should get your boiler serviced now because it is quicker. Number one, it's a bit more convenient because you can decide when it's going to be done. As in people are less busy, and it also tends to be cheaper to do it now rather than when it's freezing cold and everyone's boilers are on the blink, and then it's very expensive to get a boiler engineer out.
That's true. So with that in mind, it's in this office. I had a boiler service.
Did you?
This week.
Okay.
Nothing to do with the theme we were going to have, but I just thought I'd do it anyway. It's just good practice.
It is good practice.
I always just put it in my calendar every year. Bleeps up on the 1st of September, tells me to book a service date for this office. And
Favourite holidays, birthday, Christmas, boiler service?
Boiler service on the 1st of September.
I can imagine you like a boiler service.
Yeah,
do you sort of follow them round with your
No, I didn't. Full trust.
Okay,
in the professionals. That's what you should always do. Trust the professionals. If they are on the gas safe register.
Exactly.
Gas safe register, but also sometimes you can get them actually recommended by the manufacturer.
Okay.
So
that's what I did, to be fair. Valent boiler.
Yeah.
So Valent boilers, this is a bit of a plug for Valent, and they're not paying us, but maybe they should be. So if you have a Valent boiler installed and they give you a warranty, yeah, and I think this is pretty much still the case. If there is something going wrong with the boiler, and in my house it's not the boiler, it's some pipework, but if there's something wrong with the boiler, they will not send out the engineer who installed it. They will send out one of their own people to come and fix it. Which is quite a nice thing, to be honest.
How long do they do that for?
Well, this is for as long as you keep it in warranty. But I mean, this isn't completely proven because I've only had the boiler for a year. But that's why they need to service it every year.
So while you were just talking there, what I've just done is I've gone onto the Valent website and I've just done a quick search on installers. So I've just put my property postcode in there. And then up they pop up. So and they give you the results in terms of whether they service, whether they repair. And then towards the right hand side, you can see the distance from the installer to your property. So actually,
So it's worth doing. So that's not a bad bit of advice. So I guess with your heating, so today, this weekend, go and look at your boiler, find out who made it, go onto their website, find local installers, give them a shout, and say you want a service. Yeah, get things going. Because the worst thing you want to do is wait till it gets cold, put your heating on for it not to work. So that is tip numero uno. Second one leading on from that is it's actually bleeding your radiators. So what we tend to do here is you go and buy a very, very cheap radiator key from any good hardware store or like eBay or somewhere like that. We've got an audience now looking through the window. Right, go away.
Always do. It's a bit like.
Oh God!
It's a bit like, what is that network? Fox Network or BBC? You know, when they sit on Times Square.
Exactly.
People just like,
Dreadful. Anyway, so you go and go and buy one of these things cheap, and they are really, really cheap. If you look on Amazon now, and I'm not trying to.
I think they're about £3 or something, aren't they?
Yeah. And then, but what you're basically doing is in your radiator, they become less efficient as air in the system gets trapped in the radiators. And so the air sort of builds up at the top. So you have a key and you release the air. So you just put it
which
in.
makes sense because what your radiator system is doing is pumping warm water around your.
And you can feel it, right? You can feel it. So if you have a radiator that needs bleeding, if you touch the top of the radiator and feel cold, and as you move down, you'll basically find the level of where the hot water is because it'll suddenly get hot. Now they run a lot more efficiently and they heat more efficiently, obviously if the whole radiator is hot. So when you're doing it, when you bought your radiator key, you go and get a tea towel or something like that, because when you release the valve, eventually water will start pinging out and it tends to be really dirty.
Super gross.
Yeah, it is disgusting. Right, so just maybe a tea towel that you're not too worried about. You know, if you're saving one from a coronation, for example, then probably go for something a little bit different. But
your Archie Markle tea towel.
Exactly. So just go and get something that you don't mind wasting, but definitely have that ready because otherwise you'll get sprayed with kind of hot, potentially sort of mucky water from inside your heating system.
Ideally, don't do it when your heating's on.
No, don't do it when your heating's on. But the other thing is if you have a pressurised boiler, right? So if you have like a big hot water tank, like a mega flow type thing, or what are they, Joule? Who else?
Joule or Valiant actually do one as well.
Okay, so
quite a few actually.
But
Ariston.
one of the issues I think when you release the air out the radiators, potentially your pressure in your system can go right down. So you need to repressurise your system. So if you're unsure of how to do that, get a gas engineer, a plumber to come and do it for you. It is actually really simple. When they show you how to do it, it's incredibly easy.
Or just follow the instructions on your heating system.
Yeah. But you can repressurise it.
So I've got a combi boiler, so I do it on the combi. It's quite easy. It's two valves.
Yeah.
So, and then put it back on. Yeah.
Have you never done this, sorry?
I'm a renter. I just call my landlord in.
Is that what you do?
They bolt
so if your boiler broke, you call the landlord. You wouldn't even look, would you?
No, I'd 100% call my landlord.
Would
I pay
you?
a lot of money for them to sort out the problems for me.
Yeah, okay.
Right, on to the next one. So we've got pipe lagging, and that's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, particularly if you've got a cold water tank up in the loft area. So what you don't want is, because obviously you are insulating right above the ceiling, so you're trapping the heat, getting into the loft space, so all that cold air is going to travel through the external roof. And if you've got a cold tank, obviously you don't want it to freeze, because that could be...
So we're basically, obviously it's easy if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see, but you're stopping the heat at your ceiling of your top floor in your house, because the insulation is just above it. And so any space above that is very, very cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your cold water tank, which is giving you the pressure in your heating system, is there. And it's suddenly, it can get very cold, like freeze. Yeah?
Yeah.
And they're the tanks we're worried about.
So you want to do that, and you want to put something around the tank as well. But also, I was just going to say, so on the where you've got the hot tank, where it's returning it back into, to your bathrooms or to your taps, you're probably going to have a run from the hot water tank. So in your airing cupboard, so you'd want to lag that as well.
So lagging is, what is lagging? For our viewers, for our listeners.
So the easiest thing is it's basically an insulation cover that you can put around your pipes.
Yeah.
It's made of a material that is a bad conductor of heat, so you can normally take these things up, so you wrap it around the pipes.
They kind of come split, don't they? So if you walk into B&Q and you buy one, it's already got, basically someone's run a knife down it, obviously not in real life, and therefore it just wraps straight around your pipes.
And then you can just tape it off if you don't want it to get loose.
Yeah.
As well. It's good. I'd say you get more. It's much more prevalent, say, in commercial premises, because there you tend to get kind of really large systems and lots of pipe runs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still obviously get it in domestic. So it just depends where your hot water is coming out, and where the pipes are getting exposed.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah, makes.
It depends on
any
the
difference.
depends on the run.
Depends on but any difference is a good difference.
Yeah, true.
Especially on an old property with like loads of exposed pipes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Exposed pipe work and stops them freezing. So.
Because they tend to run under floorboards, and normally they're quite accessible.
Yeah.
And so if you can access them and do it,
Yeah,
good idea.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So while we're on the hot water side of things, so hot water jacket. So if you have a system boiler, so if you have a kind of mega flow or a Valent hot water tank or a Joule hot water tank, for example, and you've got a whole pressurised system in your house, they have insulation built in. But if you have a gravity-fed boiler, so just a regular boiler, so you've got your cold tank somewhere in the roof, typically they will be big copper tanks, aren't they? They're big, basically tanks that are storing the hot water in. So they need to be insulated. Some of them now have insulation, they come with insulation. Newer ones come with insulation, right?
That's a good point though, because I have this argument with my mum who just got a new hot water tank and she's got one of the ones with the built-in insulation and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I said she should probably get a hot water jacket for it anyway, put some extra insulation on it, because I'm of the opinion that you can't insulate too much.
The rules of diminishing returns.
Do you think?
Yeah, I reckon they have.
So according to SAP, they come at least with 50mm internal.
So they come with 50mm internal insulation, but it's not like wool. It's like a PIR, right? So it's a better insulation. So the first centimetre does more than the next centimetre does more than the next centimetre, and so forth. They, I imagine, will have optimised or decided the best way to get the best sort of space saving, because you've already got this tank in your house, and if you're in a flat, for example, this tank is taking up lots of space, so you don't want it to suddenly have 300mm of insulation on both sides of it, because that's obviously going to take up more space.
I mean, the easiest test is if you put your hand onto the plastic cover, normally they are not even lukewarm, they're just kind of room temperature.
I'll be there in 2 weeks, I'll get back to you.
Well,
I'll check my mum's boiler.
Feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd love some feedback.
We got some good feedback this week on YouTube.
We did, yeah. There was a couple of comments
You
actually.
always get good feedback.
There was a scathing comment about ecological paint, which I wasn't quite
yes,
sure about.
no, there was. I saw that.
So
yeah,
I don't know whether it's the UK market or another market. But
if you didn't want to make a comment on YouTube, but you wanted to do one, if you were listening to us, where would you listen? Sorry, I'm just breaking this up.
You're just bringing this up halfway through.
No, I'm just bringing it up halfway through, because normally we sort of say it at the beginning and people fast forward, or we say it at the end and they fast forward through that. Whereas if I say it now,
they'll have to watch.
we may have trapped
them in.
We've tricked them in. Go, tell me where we can listen to us.
Podbean, Spotify, TuneIn, and Apple Podcast.
And Stitcher. Yeah, there we go. And you can go onto our website, the Green Age website, little button says podcast, and you can subscribe. And do subscribe.
Yeah,
and listen.
Or watch it on YouTube.
Or watch it on YouTube, if you want to see my shirt choices.
I would advise against it.
Fine. Okay, sorry. So I just threw that in. Right, so then we're going to, and you touched on it earlier.
So loft insulation, very good and cheap and easy method to increase your energy efficiency. What is loft insulation? Essentially, I walk up my hatch and I peer over the loft and I look at what's above the ceiling, and if I can see the joists, it's not very good, because that means, what does that mean, James?
No insulation, Nick.
No insulation, or if you've got one of those, I don't know, properties, say they were built 25, 30 years ago, the insulation might have been pressed down, so it's not very good.
Yeah.
It's not doing what it's meant to, basically.
Unless, trick question though, unless the insulation is up in the rafters.
In which case it would be a warm room, but it would be a very inefficient way unless you're heating that space. But so if you're like most folk, you've got a conventional loft, which is just a storage space, cold storage space. You'd want to insulate above the ceiling. So we've got a good couple of videos that we talked about how to do that previously. But obviously, the more insulation, the better. So obviously, if you've got some insulation in there, it doesn't hurt to get a few more rolls and then just to put them diagonally or at sort of 90 degrees across the joists, just to give it a bit more. And the insulation itself, the whole point about the fibres is they've got to be nice and loose.
Because they're trapping air, right?
Correct. So basically you don't want to be pressing them. Well, you can board, provided you use some sort of, either you extend the joists and then you leave the insulation on there nice and loose. But you don't want to press down, because then that would diminish the quality of the insulation that you've got up there.
As my insulation expert,
Yes, Harry.
what would you say is the best kind of loft insulation?
Cheapest.
Of course.
I
I'd
would
say
go.
It depends on the lifestyle. Well, if it's cost, you're absolutely right.
I'd go right now. If you go into a hardware store, you can buy insulation. They tend to have offers about now to encourage people to do it for winter, which is a bit weird because normally, as you're coming into season, people charge more for stuff. But for whatever reason, with insulation, it's the other way around. So if you walk into B&Q,
Do it now. It's still summer.
they will give you. It's normally buy 2 rolls get a third free, something like that. It's all very, very similar in terms of thermal efficiency if you're looking at wool type insulation. Yeah, so if we're going sheep wool or we're going glass or rock wool, whatever it is, you're not going to get vast differences in the thermal performance. So it's basically all then about thickness. Yeah, so 100 mil of sheep wool will be very similar to 100 mil of rock wool.
So
Because
go
they
for
work
the
in the
cheaper
same
one and
way.
get loads more.
I would, yeah.
But if I was, so say if I was, I didn't want to do all that loft lift extension, I wanted to board the whole loft, I'd probably go PIR board. So I'd
Why would you go PIR?
because basically, so you'd save the space for the thickness that you use. So say my joist is about 100 mil thick.
Mhm.
I could get a 100 mil PIR board, have it nice and flush with my joist, and then just put the boarding out over the top.
Yeah, and so basically it's much more thermally effective.
So it
Thermally
is
effective? Yeah.
for the sizes, yeah, because it's unlike the wool product where it's trapping the warm air. The PIR board basically slows down the movement of the heat from one space to the other.
Do we know the equivalent to, so if I had 100 mil of PIR, if I'm putting you on the spot here, what would the equivalent thickness of a wool insulation be?
I'll tell you, we've got a calculator here, but lambda, you're
What kind
talking.
of calculator up in your brain?
So PIR, you're talking what, between 002 to 0022,
Yeah,
and loft is
So you
talking
value.
yeah,
point
lambda.
036.
or 038, like just depends on the product. I'd go 0038,
It's going to be, so you're going to go about 180 mil.
yeah, or
Yeah, roughly. I mean, this is kind of figured there. But no, that's what we're looking for. So it's 100 mil PIR versus like 150, 180 mil of mineral wool. Mineral wool. Right, so it's a lot more mineral wool.
So take the higher,
Much more
take
expensive,
the
isn't it?
higher over the lower number, and then multiply by 100, and that's what gives you your loft insulation. Or sorry, wool equivalent.
Yes, but how much more expensive? PIR it's a lot more expensive than the wool products.
Like twice as much, 10 times as much?
Good question.
I'd say it'd veer on the 10 times as much, and then also in terms of the labour effort, you're gonna have to cut board by board, so it'll be considerably
Whereas
more
with
labour
the-
intensive.
With the
Where the
mineral
loft,
wool.
you just lay it across, or sorry, in between the joists, and then across once you've got to the depth.
Yeah,
It's very
I'd say it's probably about 5 times more expensive, give or take. And then, but then obviously, if you're looking at sheep wool insulation, right, which is a premium product, it's breathable, it breaks down formaldehyde and other nasty VOCs.
I'd say if you're
Volatile
looking
organic
for PIR board for your loft, speak to someone like EWI store.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
And if you were looking for sheep wool, where would you go there?
Oh.
Your local farmer?
No. You need the stuff. It needs to be chemically bonded or ionized. Is it to stop the infestations of moths and
'Cause
things
they like
that.
to
So
eat
you
it.
can't use normal sheep wool because it'll just you get a.
We've had people do
infestation.
it as well. We've
It's
had
not a good
people.
idea.
It's not a
Yeah,
good
you
idea.
need to have the actual product.
It needs to be treated.
The thing about sheep wool, if you are buying sheep wool insulation, is to make sure that it's 100% or close to 100% sheep wool, because a lot of places will say sheep wool insulation is like 5% and then the rest
And
is
then plastic binder.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
and they
Defeats
charge
the
you.
purpose, yeah.
Okay, well, does that? I mean, we've done lofts in lots of details in previous episodes, so should we move on from that one?
Yeah.
So, really good one actually, and most of it is because we have convection heating systems at home, i.e., we feel warm because a room has warm air in it, right? And so, if said room no longer has warm air in it, we feel cool. Yeah. The best way, or one of the cheapest ways, because they're quite innovative, cheap products to do it, is draft-proof your house. So things like chimneys. If I've got a really, really warm room and I've got a big open chimney in the corner, then the hot air just literally goes up and out.
What would you use? What's your favourite product there?
Chimney sheep.
Why is that?
Chimney sheep are good because they, unlike the chimney balloons, they don't deflate.
Yep.
they are putting anything up your chimney can be dangerous if you have fires. I want to make that very clear.
They've got a stick.
It reminds you right, that you've got it down there, but also you just need to use a bit of brain. If you
just or tie something to it, like a little, I don't know, like a charm or just a piece of ribbon.
And that's the case with them all, especially if you have a balloon up there, because if it melts and you've got burning plastic in your chimney, you've got all sorts of issues. But I think the chimney sheep is kind of the neatest way to do it, and also so we've got an old house and there's a chimney and the stuff all just falls down when the weather's rubbish because it hasn't got a cowl on the top. The chimney sheep, I know this is a bit lazy, but it kind of like holds everything up there on top of it. And then you can then put like some plastic sheeting out and pull it down, and then all the stuff comes out. But you can do it once a year, rather than it just happening.
I've just had my chimney rendered.
Rendered?
Yeah.
Internally?
Externally.
Blimey.
It's getting a bit of moisture.
Is it looking nice now? Happy with it?
Brilliant. Bit of 225.
Very good.
Bit of mesh.
Right. So that's draft proofing chimneys, but then
so let's reel them off. Right, what else? So you can do in between the skirting and the floors.
Yeah.
You can do actually between the floorboards themselves, the gaps between that.
How do you do floorboards?
Some thing with a credit card. That might be cool.
So there's a few ways you can. If you can access
Not
underneath.
credit card, sorry, you just use it to wedge that.
If you can access underneath, you'd make a little. Oh no!
Is it what's
you'd
it called?
make a little.
Ecotherm. Just carry on. Don't worry. It will always do that.
New coffee machine.
It will always do that. Yeah.
So you can put a little hammock of insulation underneath all the
But it has to be
joists.
suspended?
It's if you've got access underneath,
Right,
underneath your floorboards, and you put wool in this hammock. Basically, you just staple on a net and put the insulation underneath.
So if this is an interesting one. I just did an EPC not too far away from here, and it was one of those properties just by the Thames, and they are effectively built on stilts, or rather, they have a structural wall, but they are sort of really suspended. So you can go down into the cellar, and you've got a big void, but it's so easy to access the floors. So for that, it would just be the easiest.
And it is worth it. That's the best way because you get insulation benefits and you stop the drafts because obviously you've got a solid thing beneath the floorboards. The thing you were talking about, because we used to sell it, right? There was a product called Draft X.
That's it, Draft X.
And it's like a little bit of spongy
material.
Yeah, material that you squish between all of your floorboards, and then it kind of expands into the void. And works quite well. You just need a huge amount of it. Because I was always I thought it's relatively good value, you're right. But it's a 25 metre strip. But if you have a room that's 4 by 4 metres, then if you've got 30 floorboards, it's suddenly there's quite a lot of material you have to use. It's quite fiddly. So the accessing underneath is the ideal.
Yeah.
Other things that are really simple and allow you to kind of avoid that is laying carpets or putting down a big rug. Because it just stops all of that air coming up through the floorboards. So that's a lot.
So different things you can do to the floors, then just reeling them off. So for under doors, you've got the little draft excluders, the sausage draft excluders. Forget those animal ones, but what they call always forget the name.
Dora,
that's it. Dora, quite good. You've got on letterboxes. You've got the letterboxes with the heavy
clothes,
brushes.
and have magnets as well and clothes.
So although your post will be all scrambled up,
at
least you'll be in the knowledge that you won't have any drafts coming through your front door.
No, it's a good idea. So blocking around doors, and you can also use it's not a million miles actually from the stuff you put between the floorboards, but it's an adhesive backed rubber product that you can basically put around the door frame, and then when the door closes, it obviously creates a sort of airtight seal, and the same thing would then work in the loft space. So on your loft hatch, when the loft hatch falls, we don't want nice hot air that we paid for with our heating system to travel out through the loft hatch.
I know this one might be obvious, but just close your internal doors
to
stop the drafts.
Yeah.
So nice and easy.
And if you have a conservatory, which you don't, do you? Because you're not a massive fan, I seem to remember.
Not a fan of conservatory, but I've seen a lot that have been,
But when they're open,
headaches for lots of people.
But when they're open into the house, well, what you can do is, because obviously if it's single glazed, then it gets very, very cold in there. During the winter months, you can, as you say, get heavy curtains and basically make it two distinct rooms.
So you can enjoy those warm, sunny December mornings, but as soon as it gets to about lunchtime, the sun sets.
We're convincing you towards conservatories.
I think we
Absolutely
are.
not.
I think we're winning.
We'll get you.
not.
Yeah, we will. First rendering chimneys, next conservatories.
Right, so that's draft proofing. I think.
But draft proofing is a good one because it's really cheap, and people tend to have kind of specific areas that are very, very cold and problematic, and so it tends to be cheap to find a solution for those different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one. Sorry, next.
Something we did to this office a couple of years ago, we put thermostatic controls, particularly the TRVs, so the thermostatic radiator valves on the radiators. Because what I was finding was it was just so difficult. So whereas downstairs is not used as much, so this room just gets particularly hot anyway, all times of the year. That upstairs people needed it more, whereas downstairs it wasn't being used. So obviously the easiest thing there was to close or reduce the ones downstairs by having a TRV turn right down.
Yeah.
And then the upstairs rooms turn right up, so everyone's nice and warm and cosy. So that's one thing we did. And we also, we've got obviously you can't see it there, but Harry can see it, is a thermostat.
Mm-hmm.
So that controls pretty much the heating in this office building, but you can get a lot more sophisticated than that. How can people get very sophisticated thermostatic controls?
Well, they can go. You can basically now spend as much as you want on future-proofing your house and putting full automation in your house. So I've gone for the pretty easy Nest thermostat. So this thing it's all it is really a thermostat. It's just it looks prettier than your normal ones and it's a bit more intelligent. And what it allows you to do is from my phone here, my wife is at home now with my little girl, that I can turn the heating right down if I want to give them a little surprise, or I can turn the heating up. But but I can do that from here. But that would be useful if you leave the house, you forget to turn down your heating.
It has a fun. It has a fun to me function where you can connect your phone, so you connect the app to it, and it can sense when you're on your way home.
Geofencing, geolocation.
Right, and it senses when you're on your way home, and it turns
the heating on
when you leave.
Is that the Nest now?
Yeah.
Oh.
I used to have it.
Got version 1.
It's really clever. That sort of stuff, and it allows you. Whereas the traditional sort of programmers allowed you to do it, and people only set them up, for it would go on for 2 hours here and 2 hours there. The Nest app allows you, and there are loads of these intelligent heating systems now.
Hive is another big one.
Yeah, Heat Genius.
Yeah.
We've got Neo.
No, what do they do?
Yeah. There's
loads of them. We've got
Heatmiser. What's the one that the guys that we met? Remember that system that I really liked? No. There was a system. No, the old company, the old school company, the big one. Do you know the ones I mean?
Yeah, but it's...
What the hell was that called?
We'll pop it in the description.
Yeah. But basically, so I've just got a simple thermostat, right? But it allows me to change the temperature of my house like 100 times a day if I wanted to, and it really begins to sort of learn what your behaviour is and try and heat accordingly. But if you want to take it a step further, on the radiators you were talking about TRVs, which is kind of allowing certain amounts of water to go through, certain amounts of hot water to go through at different rates, right? So radiators seem hotter than others. But you can get ones now that are they're recording temperatures in rooms, and they are allowing only as much water through to get that temperature. We've got quite some clever systems.
Or now. They just turn, they come on and off or if you've got a proper manifold where you've underfloor heating, it's even better because every room then has its own thermostat.
Exactly, and you can do, but there's all these systems now work incredibly well, and I think when we first started doing what we're doing, 2011-ish, the systems were right in their infancy and they weren't amazing. This is really weird because you've got a little video and I can see my hand expressions. And they're the same in the video.
No, it wasn't that. It was his comment, and I promise you, it's not a planted comment.
Fine, but it was. But I think that's quite an interesting thing now that they've evolved. Google has just spent a huge amount of money on Nest, and it's now Google Nest. Essentially, is this whole brand.
Alarm systems.
Yeah, and so this home automation thing is becoming bigger and bigger. Like windows that a shutting and opening to
Fire.
let heat in, and
Fire alarm,
so I
lighting,
think I think a lot of these things are expensive initially, right, to install. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend they're cheap, but if you've got a colder house and a bigger house, then they're really clever, because they're the ones where you make fundamental savings. Like, you make big savings if you can get it right.
The issue I suppose you've got is, so say you are like I think majority of the population that lives in a period property in this country. So i.e. say 60 odd or more percent people properties over 100 years old, where the insulation quality is not that good. They still might have single glazing or not that very good loft insulation, etc. Is how does then these systems? It's very hard to get it up to that temperature in the winter because you're getting so much heat loss through the fabric. In some ways, a lot of folks are limited in terms of the effectiveness.
Well, that's why we always talk about fabric first approach, Nicholas.
Yes.
I mean, as you said, the key is you've got to sort out the envelope first.
I guess if practically that's not a consideration, what you might want to do is prioritize a couple of rooms that you're going to use throughout the day. So say if you got your home office and your kitchen, you might just want to heat that and then turn the heating off the rest of the house, because then you at least know it's it's being centered on the places where you actually need it, and then obviously turn it up in the afternoon. If more people.
If I was going to invest in heating controls, I would definitely do smart thermostatic radiator valves, TRVs, rather than a centralised thing like Nest, because then you can do your different zones and you can have it so that I'm in the living room's hot, the rest of the house isn't being heated, as opposed to let's turn the heating on for 2 hours here, 2 hours there, because to go back to my mum's house, that's a huge house with like 4 floors, and if you are in the living room and have to go out and turn off every other radiator, she's got like people in and out there all the time. They're turning radiator valves like crazy. If you've got some kind of smart system, they are expensive, but it's
the savings are big.
Yeah.
So what about? So this is assuming that you've got gas central heating, but not every folk out there has got gas central heating. James, some people have got old school storage heaters.
Yeah.
What would you recommend there? So
if I had an old school storage heater, I think it depends. Unfortunately,
say you had to, so you've only got electric.
So if I've only got electric, it depends. Annoyingly, no, but it depends on how much money you want to invest, right? Because so if I've got electric storage heaters, old ones, they're rubbish. Yeah.
So what I mean is because the theme is thermostatic controls in this particular point. What would you? Because obviously you can't necessarily do anything there. You can only replace them, right? Yeah,
exactly. Well, exactly. They're rubbish, but you can either replace them with new storage heaters, right? And storage heaters, just a really quick reminder, you basically take advantage of cheap electricity at night. You charge them, and then release the heat during the day. But the issue is with the old ones is you charge them at night, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, all the heat's escaped anyway, so they're kind of useless. Whereas the new ones store that heat, but they're also thermostatically controlled, etc., etc. So they're really, really good, but they're also 900 quid a piece. For a really good one. So that's a lot of money to spend. I would probably take them out, move off economy 7, so that dual tariff, which is cheap electricity at night and more expensive electricity during the day. I would move to a single tariff where you've got sort of generally it's more expensive than the cheaper rate, but it's cheaper than the more expensive rate of the dual tariff. Does that make sense? So it sort of sits in the middle of those two values, and I would then put in a form of electric heating that was kind of more localised to where you're using the rooms.
We have an episode on this, didn't we? We did an episode on cheapest forms of electric heating, and we talked about it. So
because you can look at heat pumps and all that kind of thing. But if I'm in a block of flats on the 4th floor, the last thing I'm going to do is put a ground source heat pump in, right? Because it's just not realistic. So you've just got to look, and you've got to look at budgets and all that sort of stuff. We often get asked if there is financial help for all these things. Your best bet at the moment, there is a small amount of funding available, right, via this Eco3 mechanism. But
what does Eco stand for there?
Energy Company Obligation.
Good man.
And it's the 3rd round of funding, and this started quite a long time ago, this scheme, so we're in the 3rd kind of tranche of funding. I would advise speaking to your local council, because they are actually relatively clued up And if they can't point you in the right direction, they sometimes have emergency funds and all that sort of thing to help people who are struggling with being able to pay for various bits and pieces. Is that fair?
Yep.
Moving off.
Go on to the next one. Yeah. So just got to reel them off. We'll talk about windows a little bit. So we talked about draft proofing.
Yeah.
But what if you've got single glazed windows,
so
and you can't, say, for heritage or for
expense or because it's
What's-
expensive to put a double glazed window.
and say you're limited, you can't really move on to anything else.
Secondary glazing, which I think is where you're going with this, is it's really clever. Number one, it's really good for acoustic insulation, so it stops noise coming through.
Way better than double glazing.
Way better than double glazing. It's also a fraction of the price of double glazing.
It's about 15-20% of the price of double glazing.
Yeah. And there is, I had in my flat a long time ago, I did a video actually of when we got some, we got these Eco-E's, and they're basically magnetic secondary glazing panels. And I had a big single glazed window and had these panels, and you just put them in. And you can remove them in the summer, which is nice because that's quite a nice thing to do. It sort of keeps all the features. But then in the winter, when it does get a bit colder, you suddenly have this. Helps with noise, keeps the place a lot warmer, and they're really good value. They're fantastic, and they make a big old difference. So
they don't make as much of a difference thermally as double glazing would, but they're
a fraction of the price.
Exactly.
Right, and they're bespoke. They're made bespoke for your window size. So you put in your measurements, and they send through these windows to you. So they're Eco-E's, and they're definitely worth checking out if you're looking at trying to improve the thermal efficiency of windows, which is always the weakness in the thermal envelope. So like the outside of your house, walls, roof, etc. Windows are the bad bit.
If you were going to go with glazing, changing your glazing, would you do double or triple?
Loads of companies now offering triple for the price of double. So go triple.
Right.
Go with the best you can afford. And what you're looking for is the lowest U value possible.
What if you've got double? Would you change it out for triple?
Not unless it's
something
blown.
knackered,
If the
it doesn't
windows
make enough of a difference.
doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, but
It's
we're
marginal.
talking
It's marginal
payback
savings,
100 years.
Yeah.
So those adverts of the 80s when it was going to save 90% on your heating bills.
So we mentioned Eco-E's there. That was quite good. Now going back slightly onto the next point, which is about financial assistance. So you're talking a bit about eco and all that stuff, but there's actually, so if you are born before 5th of April 1954 and
It's just
Someone
like
off your
that.
head, Nick.
and you're entitled to state
Someone's doing
pensions,
their research.
and you're entitled
Hey.
to state pensions, and or you've got other social security benefit, and you're of that age, you automatically qualify for a winter fuel payment, which is anywhere between £100 to £300. And you've got till March 2020 to apply that onto your energy bill. So that's a universal benefit. And then in addition to that, which Harry kindly provided for us, you've got the warm home discount, which is a means tested.
Yeah. So the warm home discount, basically, there's they separate the people that can get it into two groups. So the first group is essentially anyone.
Get a state pension.
Yeah, basically, and your name is on the bill and whatnot. So then you get this £140 towards your energy bills. The other people that can get it are the second group. They call it the broader group. And that changes slightly between energy companies, but you have to apply for it. It's not automatic. So if you think that you might, if you think that you're struggling to pay your bills and might qualify, get in touch with your energy company or go on the website, warm home discount, and you might get 140 quid.
Cool.
I mean, it comes off your energy bills. It's not just like take this and go away. But
Okay. Very good. And then any other bits of financial assistance people can
Is
get?
there the cold fuel winter payment still? So if it's more than 7 consecutive days of 0 degrees or below, you get an additional.
yeah, but I can't remember exactly how much it is. It's not very much, and you need really consistently extremely bad weather.
And I don't think we should hope for that.
No, absolutely not. So say if you're in high ground or potentially the north of the country where it's a bit colder,
Yeah.
you could get those.
Can we move on to the
Cold
final
days.
tip, because I know we're going on time wise.
Yeah.
So my final thing is, so as the days get shorter
Yeah.
Not generally, because they're 24 hours, but as the light, the amount of daylight hours get shorter. People are turning on their lights earlier and earlier, moving to LEDs. So LED lighting is just a no-brainer, because you swap out your old bulbs. Don't wait till they blow. Go and change them now for LEDs, because they will pay back within no time at all, and it will make an enormous difference to your electricity bill. It's nothing to do with heating. But electricity is about 4 times the price of gas, i.e. electric to heating. And so if you can start lowering your electricity bill, you're going to save a lot on your energy bills. So I would really, really have a look at that. And especially as it's going to get darker, we're going to have lights on more and more now for the next 6 or so months.
I'd also say with lights, I know Christmas is a while away, but we're starting to think about those kinds of things. I've seen advent calendars already, shocking. But you can get, if you're the kind of person that decorates your house with lights, then think about solar-powered Christmas lights. They're pretty good, and you might think that it's not sunny enough during these days, but you don't need with LEDs that you don't use very much energy. You don't need too much.
And also if they don't come on now, that's not a problem, because it's 4 months till Christmas.
Look, I'm getting in the festive spirit. Okay, I heard you humming Old King Wenceslas the other day.
So I think that's it. I think that's our kind of top tips to prepare for winter. Have you? Let's try and do news really quickly.
We've got some more tips. We've
got
probably
more
elaborate
tips.
on another episode.
Yeah, but we've been going on for a long time now.
Yes.
Not that I'm getting bored of either of your voices.
Do you want to just reel off as many as you can think of really quickly?
No. No, let's save them.
All right.
Let's save them for another blog video thing. What we're doing, podcast. Good Lord, maybe I am getting tired.
It's Friday afternoon when we're recording this.
Honestly.
Well, here's some positive news. We've had all this negative news about deforestation in the Amazon, but actually some fine weather, surprise, surprise, in the UK, has really boosted the butterfly population in the UK. So we've had, in terms of yields of coloured butterflies, we've had the most over the last 10 years. So since 2009, it's been a record amount of coloured species.
Are you into your butterflies?
No, I'm not. I just found it as positive news. It's quite positive.
We should always have positive news.
No, I mean, looking at some of those pictures there, they're beautiful.
Beautiful butterflies.
They are beautiful. Anyway, I think that's it for today.
It's quite a good note to finish on.
Yeah. Great.
So, anyone else? Any comments?
Yeah, maybe we should do some news next episode.
Okay, we'll do it.
Some more news.
Okay. Or maybe relate it to Brexit, because that'll be exciting.
I think I'm coming down with
No,
something.
I'm
You'll have to
coming
do
down
that
with
one.
Anywho, right, well listen, thank you very much for listening to episode 24, and we hope that you listen to our next episode, which we will now be recording next week. Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye.